Hello and welcome to the Future Hidden Movie Gems, multiple, plural.
Well, this
movie
is
podcast.
the gem, Ty. This is the gem.
This is the movie gem. We've been building toward this moment, folks. This is
it.
This is year 3, folks. Here we go. Anyway, I'm your host.
It is.
Hidden
It's
Movie
crazy.
Gems.
We're coming on
Dude,
3 years, or we've done 3
yeah.
years now. Yeah.
I guess you're starting the third year, or does that mean we're 3 years old? It's not a third birthday.
Yeah, we've done 3 years now.
But we are 2 years old. And we're like 2 and 1 month old or whatever, right? Yeah. Well, actually, I just had a conversation about this. Apparently, in Korea or in Asian countries, I don't know why I'm going on this tangent, but like they count where when you're born, you're 1. Because technically you're in your first year of life, technically, so they just count it as 1 all the way up until
no 0, huh?
No 0.
And they skip all the people talking about, oh, he's this many months.
Oh yeah, there's probably some really pissed off husband who was like, I can't remember to be bothered how many months my child is. He's 1. It's his first year of life. He's 1 year old. That's so funny. I love that idea. And he's like, I can be bothered a year and a half. Oh, that's great. So anyway, guys, we're doing a movie podcast. If I seem agitated and I'm out of it, I just struck a deer like an hour ago. I don't know what that's going to do for my insurance. So yeah, I just hit a deer. Car's being looked at, so we're good. But if I'm scatterbrained, it's probably because I'm a little frazzled. But I came on the podcast because I prioritize you, my listeners, and Jordan and Ryan. So this is Future Hidden Movie Gems. So glad that you all make it. And my quote, I was gonna sing. I can't sing as good as Billy does. I don't know how I could. The Home is Behind song brings me to tears every time I watch it. So that's my quote: is the home is behind, the world ahead. I do not have the singing chops of Billy, but I'm really glad that he sang it, and it's really the actor singing. So we've got Jordan Christensen on the podcast.
The shadow that bred them can only mock. It cannot make not real new things of its own. Oh, suck it, new Lord of the Rings garbage.
Is that J.R.R. Tolkien that said that?
Yeah.
Yes. Darkness can't produce good content. It can only destroy that which is good.
Yeah, that was
looking
somebody...
at you, Bezos. Turd.
Oh, yeah, I know. Oh my gosh. But we're here to talk about this masterpiece.
We're here to talk about them. And we've got a very special guest, Ryan Mickle.
I'm back for
round 3.
Back for round 3 here. Yeah, this is the best.
This is a yearly tradition. In fact, I'm thinking, I was just about to ask, but I don't even have to ask. I was going to say, so next year, now we reviewed all Lord of the Ring movies, we'll now review Hobbit Part 1, An Unexpected Journey or whatever, next year. But I was like, but we won't have Ryan on the podcast. He'll refuse to come on. Is that right?
No, I'll do the Hobbit, but I won't do the third Hobbit.
Wait, does that mean the third Hobbit movie, or do you mean the third monstrosity, redheaded stepchild, which is Rings of Power?
No, definitely not. I'll do. Why don't we do the Hobbit as a story, as one podcast? Because in my opinion, it's one book.
I hear that there's a version of the movie that's 3 hours long. They cut all 3 movies down to. Which that
would be welcomed.
That sounds right.
If you can find a copy of that, we'll do that.
Yeah, let's get a copy.
Back
to the movie at hand, guys. We're talking about Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Yes.
Can we pull up on Google how many Oscars this won?
11, folks.
11.
It won 1 Oscar for every movie ending there was.
And should we just end the podcast right there?
The movie has 11 endings. Did you not get that? Okay, whatever. I thought that was a good joke.
I sat through the entire credits. I was like, it was like 10 minutes of just, there's so many people that were a part of this. It's so cool. I was just thinking of like how proud you would be to be like, yeah, I was a part of that.
Oh yeah, dude. Okay. Do you think Peter Jackson sits back in his chair watching this movie? He's like, how the freak did I make this masterpiece? Do you think he thinks that after he's like, comparing to the other movies he's made, like what was going on, dude? freaking on octane, dude. He's food coloring from Mad Max. He's like, witness me. He makes the best movie trilogy of like all time.
Yeah,
how do you
I would
do
agree.
it?
I think that there's so many movies made, but there are very few masterpieces, and
Yeah,
in a way, everything just came together for him in this one because it was the best ending to a trilogy. I don't think there was any improvement with this one. It's so good.
so satisfying.
Well, and to have a trilogy
So
that is
crazy.
perfect as a whole, because there's so many movies, it's like, oh, the first and the last one were good. The second one,
Everyone, yeah, can agree that the sequels always suck. The first and third are pretty good in like a tried and true franchise. Except Toy Story, they also did that.
and
But
I
again,
need to,
Toy Story
oh,
4,
good
an
point.
abomination, but then you
Oh.
have Hobbit and Rings of Power. So it's like, no. We're
Well,
just gonna look at.
I need to know, Ryan, because we didn't get to see this in the theaters, but when you were waiting for the last film, was it agony or were you just like dying from the excitement? Just
You know, it's so interesting for me personally. Like it's the journey watching these movies was so long. Truthfully, I mean, it was 3 years that you started the trilogy to the end. But it was like so like there are a few things in life that give joyful anticipation, and this
So few.
trilogy gave a lot of joyful anticipation. And I saw it in theaters, and man, it was really hard to take it in, other than a lot of tears, truthfully, because the
yeah.
way that it was masterfully delivered at the end, wrapping it all up in a bow and giving it to you, as a gift, was just amazing. I mean, Peter killed it. Amazing,
Nailed it.
amazing job. He nailed it.
100%. Yeah, I mean, Peter Jackson directing. It's so funny. I always have to mention that every time. This is the guy that brought you Plain Dead or Dead Alive or
Brain dead.
whatever. Oh, excuse me. I said Plain Dead. Yeah, excuse me. Brain Dead or Dead Alive,
Dead
which is
alive.
just like this gory. What was it? The most
But
prosthetic blood or whatever
you can
in
see
any
a
movie.
lot of like his work and why. I mean, it's hard to believe you're like that he turned that and then turned and made this, but like
Oh
you
my gosh.
see,
I'm convinced. So we've talked about movies, like top 10 movies, top 10 TV shows. Jordan, I was just thinking of a category, top 10 movie scenes. And this movie has a top 10 movie scene of all time for me. Like it's from the moment that Billy sings his song to the king. I keep saying Billy, that's his actor's name. What's
yes,
the Pippin or is it
when
Mary? No,
the king's
Mary
like
Pippin.
eating the juices are
sings
flowing.
to Roman or whatever his name is, the evil king, who any less skilled director, it's Billy Boyd. I keep forgetting his name. I always go on Billy Boy, Billy Bob. It's Billy Boyd. He any less skillful director, I think the scene with the king eating would have actually made me laugh because it's like you just hate this king so much already, and then like you watch him like what was Peter Jackson's direction? And he's like, eat this tomato, except eat it like a psychopath. He's just like gnawing at this food and it's just juice and everything's falling out of his mouth. And it still makes me not thinking about it. But when I watch the scene, I'm brought to tears because
All right.
there's so much about his character. I want to get into Pippin's character because I love his arc in
Well,
this
I was
movie.
gonna record the clip where
Um,
he falls into the flames and just send it to you because that made me laugh out loud.
dude, just dousing himself in oil. Love it, dude. One of the greatest movie villains in a long time.
So, Ryan, you said what it was like watching the first time, and how
Yeah,
many times
dude.
did you see it in the theaters? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a great memory for that, but
Okay.
I do remember. I have vivid memories of the first time because I saw it at midnight, and the movie was over at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Dude, and mind you,
Which,
that's only theatrical cut. So yeah, you watch the movie now, it's like 4.5
4
hours
hours.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 hours. So
yeah,
4.5.
and
Yeah.
I
they're like,
remember it was jam
oh,
packed, and I was sitting next to a bunch of girls that were dressed up as elves, and they were
Yeah.
sobbing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
great. I mean, what a really neat community, a neat following. There's definitely like a microculture behind this movie of all of these Tolkien heads that just love this story, and Peter delivered to so many of us.
yeah.
The beautiful story on film here.
And what was it like rewatching it?
I try to actually rewatch it every about 2 to 3 years, truthfully. I mean, I kind of get
So
into this
crazy.
mood where you want to go through the journey again. And it delivers every time. I think that the most gratifying time I've had in recent memory is just the remastered version of it,
Mm-hmm.
that Peter put so much effort into bringing it to a high quality Dolby Atmos 4K that it's delightful to watch. It
And this
feels like
last
it
time,
was filmed yesterday. You
in
know,
this
Almost on
last, oh
par is
yeah,
the vision of George Lucas, going back with special editions.
oh jeez, gosh,
Here, let me put this really just ugly CGI monstrosity in this movie. There, that makes it look better. This won't age poorly in 4 years.
I know that is amazing you say that, Ryan. I seriously was thinking that. I'm like, it's amazing that this movie has aged so well. And I mean, you watch Rings of Power, it feels like that's going to age so quickly, just like Hobbit. I feel like Hobbit's already aged.
Dude, you're okay. Age. You're assuming that it ever had a good time, a prime time, Jordan. It did not age like a fine wine where people at the time were enjoying it. It was crap, instant crap, just compost, like immediately upon release. It was not. Did not age well. It didn't ever have a time in which it was good. This movie, however, yeah, like you said, aged like a fine wine. It's not going bad. It's better now than it was when it was released. I love this movie.
Well, and this movie made me long for more of this, like seeing people in actual costumes and like all the love that went into.
I thought you said the movie was long.
No, no.
All right, Jordan.
I loved it. It felt like
the long
went
movie
by
made
like
you
that.
long for it. Longed for more. I just love that you used the word longed. Like,
well, I think these movies, particularly Return of the King, gave Titanic a run for its money. I mean, it was really long for its day, and I think that it was really well edited. I mean, he probably shot so many more hours, and they did a great job condensing it, getting to, tying the threads through the characters and getting what's necessary into the story to make it as emotional as it was, right? I mean, because when I think of this movie, I do think that it draws out a lot of human emotions.
Yes.
Are very very relatable and very like deep. It's a deep movie.
And can we talk about the biggest theme, death? Like I just feel like Disney avoids that, like the plague, like that nobody can die and they just keep bringing back people. But in this show, there's so many. It's like they're like, we might never see each other again. And I was getting emotional when Merry and Pippin like separated, because I'm like, that could be their last time they ever see each other. And I don't know. I love a movie that's willing to. It's a perfect story.
Going to get me started, because that's one of my two favorite things about this movie.
Oh, okay, you can get
all Pippin. No, I know, but no, because you're gonna get me say it right now. But I want to get into Brian. I want to hear. Oh, Jordan, real quick, what was it like watching it for the first time for you and rewatching it for this podcast?
So sadly, I fell asleep the first time watching this final movie in the trilogy.
Because Jordan starts movies at like 12 o'clock. He's like, yeah, I'll just get like a tight Lord of the Rings viewing in.
And I watched the theatrical cut, which is hilarious because later on YouTube I saw the clip where they shoot down what's the guy that Sauron. Yeah, they shoot him with the arrow, and I was like watching
this
it on
has to
YouTube.
Be said. The theatrical version does such a good job. I think that was the biggest blunder, not involving Christopher Lee's Sauron. That whole plot line is removed from the theatrical,
which is crazy,
which is nuts thinking about it. But again, they had so much to do already, a 3.5 hour runtime in the theater. It's like, how long can we like legally keep people in a theater?
but the first time I saw that on YouTube, I was like,
like,
when did they do this? And I actually watched a parody to it. It was somebody added him yodeling as he was falling down, and so I was like,
yes, all the memes. The was it the Lol guy from the Russian yodeler or whatever? Yeah.
It's really great. But now watching it
is great.
I mean, like on this viewing, I mean, I can't even count how many times I cried. And a lot of it is because, and I'm glad, Ryan, you sent that clip of talking about the music. Like, it had so much to do with the music. It just got me constantly. I was like, oh my gosh, this is easily one of the best scores.
Ever.
Absolutely.
Ever.
Absolutely. I remember I was watching this movie for the first time, and Mom and Dad walked in on me watching this movie, and they yelled at me.
I like you said they walked in on you, like you were like looking at something.
I'm like, that's not what it looks like. Yeah. I was trying to hide it. No, they got mad at me, and then 2 weeks later, they were watching this movie
with Ryan
finishing it. Yeah, well, no, not with Ryan. It was
okay.
just like on their own, but I'm sure it was Ryan's recommendation, obviously. But like, I was like, they were mad because I was watching it, and they're like, we don't bring this filth into our home, and then like they're watching it, and I'm like,
yeah.
And I know for a fact that I was 14, 15 at the time. So again, they were like, not appropriate for our house. They said, you want to watch it somewhere else, go do that somewhere else. And I was just like, again, at that point, I was just like, what? And then I watched them watching it like it's no big deal. And I'm like, I'm just supposed to forget this. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. Because they showed up right as the Eagles were coming in to save Sam and Frodo. So they're telling me to turn it off. And I'm like, well, let me just get some conclusion here. Will they ever escape from Mount Doom? Tune in next week to find out. It was awful. So first viewing experience was ruined. Thanks, Mom and Dad. But since then, I've watched it and I'm like, oh, when my kids are like 8, they're going to be watching Lord of the Rings with me. Like, when they're 8, 9 years old.
When can your daughters watch it, Ryan? I'm curious when you're going to let them see it.
Oh, they'll watch it now. Just parts.
No, they don't. Probably between 10 and 12, just because there are parts that I feel like
I'm talking like
they'll be scary.
Yes. See, like I say, I watch Harry Potter. I watched the first 2/3 of the first Harry Potter movie. My kids love Harry Potter. That's all they've seen. And I'm thinking Lord of the Rings. It's like they're gonna watch all of Unexpected Journey when they're like 5, 6 years old, and then they could watch like most of Fellowship, or at least the whole beginning of it. Without the whole. Anything after Uruk-hai shows up, or the evil troll with the freaking head throwing knives and stuff. Yeah, none of that. They don't need to see the birth of an orc until they're much older. Can't get that image out of your head, So, oh gosh. But so anyway, rewatching it now though, yeah, it's super fulfilling. And I watch it, and like you said, Jordan, after I slog through like all the crap that's being mass produced, factory lined out today, I'm just like, wow, like the vision and the wonder. It actually, made me like fantasize just a better time where more people put a little bit more care into making films. Cause I get it. Not everything's a passion project in life, but this one is so apparent that everyone involved in it, from the music to the writing to the adaptation, the faithful adaptation to what J.R.R. Tolkien had written, to all the actors portraying the characters that they were,
to the costumes. I mean,
costumes. Everyone put so much attention to detail, and everyone just cared and gave it their all. They're like, leave nothing on the table. Like, this is and I'm so glad that they swept the awards. It's funny. There was one of the folks that won, because they swept. They had 11 nominated. They won the 11, or they had 13 nominations and won 11 of them. It was crazy. One of the person, I can't remember who it was that got nominated. It was something. It wasn't like special effects or anything, but it was like the lady, whoever won that award was like, I'm just so relieved that Lord of the Rings wasn't nominated in this category so I could win an award. I thought that was really funny. He was like, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here, because if they had qualified for this award, they would have gotten it. But anyway, it was just funny that I was like, yeah, they just cleaned house. And I was like, that's super awesome. It's not all too often that like a fantasy movie with lighthearted comedy with real themes, like you said, of mortality and things like that, just doesn't get recognized. These are just like it's a crime when you think about, like, they had 8 Harry Potter films. You're like, there's a Guinness Book of World Record there, like 8 movies spanning like majority of the same cast, like crazy feats. But this one was like so specific. All the actors involved in this, like the filming took 2 years, if I'm correct in that. It took them like 2 years to take all this stuff and film this. It's just so crazy. It's so crazy to me.
Well, I think there are a few films that have this kind of community of actors that live together and labor and love for something. And I think that Harry Potter is one of them. You see the effect it had on those actors, and when in the 20-year anniversary of Harry Potter, they kind of reminisce on that. And then you have again the COVID surprise where Josh Gad pulled on everyone in that Lord of the Rings cast to come on and talk. You can see how much it affected their lives.
Yes, that I watched all of that
20 years later.
The script reading, I got super emotional. It was super fun to see all the actors come back. That was super awesome.
There's just not a lot of movies that spark that kind of emotion in a cast.
When I watch this, I'm like, they're demonstrating what is possible. Like, and I know it's hard and it takes effort and it takes money, but it's like, this needs to be archived. I'm glad it won Best Picture, but it's like, this needs to be put in a vault. Like, heaven forbid an EMP wipes out everything. It's like, we need to save this somehow. Like, get everybody go out there right now and buy a Blu-ray extended version of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Like, keep a copy of it safe, stow it under your mattress, put it in your vault at Gringotts, save your copy, dude. Just, I can't stress that enough. This is historic in not only achievement and scope, but like the feels. Oh my gosh, if like storytelling is dead, like put this on and you're like, this is what stories can be. They can inspire you, they can lift you up, they can make you feel alive, they can make you feel something,
It's like,
you don't have to keep burning,
you
don't have to keep lighting matches and let them burn down all the way to the fingertips just to feel something, so anyway.
Nick Cage.
Yeah, so speaking of Nick Cage, still glad it was Viggo Mortensen. I'm sorry. Really relieved that Nick Cage didn't make it as, even though I love both cuts, release the Nick Cage cut where he's Aragorn, but a close casting call, but I'm really relieved it was Viggo because he pulls at my heartstrings in this one too. The reluctant king finally taking up his mantle. It's like the Lion King story, somebody's like, I don't want to be king, and then he's just like, you have to, and then Elrond shows up, he's like, dude, I just forged this weapon for you, man. It's so good. Yes. So anyway, I want to get into two of our favorite things and then we could just gush about the rest of the stuff. But Ryan, what are your two favorite things from this movie?
It's really
if you
hard.
can pick just two.
Yeah, he just narrowed down to two. Well, I just want you to get a moment in the spotlight to gush about like something that really impresses you, because, and it doesn't, no one's going to hold your feet to the fire saying those are your two favorite things.
I would just say that this movie, in a way, stands alone as a masterpiece on its own without the other two. It's like one of these movies that you could, if you watched it without the others, you could really get a lot out of it with just the depth of character development. Like you mentioned, Aragorn, watching him, go through his journey. They follow it so well. And then at the end, when he's, the coronation is incredible, right? It's just so well done. And you see, like you said, Merry and Pippin split, and they have their own challenges, and they're trying. Everyone's kind of in a way fighting for their cause in their own way, and boy, it's tough. I would say one of my favorite parts in this movie is how Peter, with the music, defined kind of what death means in a way, right? What this challenge means to these different characters, like when they're being hammered up at Minas Tirith, and Pippin and Gandalf have this moment where Pippin's like, I didn't think it'd end like this, and Gandalf says death's not the end, and he talks about just like the deeper meaning of a journey, and it's okay if it's not the way you planned it, right? Same thing with Frodo laying on Mount Doom, and you have Sam talking to him. He's like, I can't remember what life was like before, and just those moments that were just kind of baked in along the way as like just reflective moments. I just don't think like in Hollywood you get that very much. You don't get these deeper emotional moments where
they rush it, right? Because even if they do have a moment, it's only a moment, and this one they just let it breathe.
They let it breathe, exactly. And the nice thing is you've had 8 hours of film to build up for this. Yeah. So you really feel an emotional connection with the way that he delivered that, and it's brilliant. I mean, of course, the action scenes they were incredible for their time, and I still feel like they're really well done with the CGI and the battles. But for me, it kind of all comes down to Peter delivering on those emotional moments.
Oh, love it. I love it. Give me the feels, brother. Jordan, what about you, man? Two of your favorite things.
Oh yeah, I'm still like soaking in what Ryan said because I'm just like, it's so good. Yeah, I mean, I guess going off of what Ryan said, like that emotional connection to the music as well. Like, I mean, I've already mentioned it, but there were so many times where, I mean, even when they had a shot of just zooming into one of the cities, but the music was making me emotional. I was just like, is
Dun, dun, dun,
so
dun, dun, dun,
so beautiful. It's so perfect. Um, it has literally everything I need in a movie, um, and like Ty said, I was thinking the same thing as I was watching it. Just I'm feeling something, and I was just so excited because, um, yeah, I don't feel very much for movies today, so this was such a refreshing uh blast from the past. So
Well, beautiful words. Well, neither of you could say two things. You guys are just gushing. So I'll explain in good detail. So Pippin, Fool of a Took, there's great scenes throughout the movies where he's constantly getting into trouble. He's kind of a troublemaker, and it actually endangers them. In fact, what's so crazy is a lot of Pippin's uh, choices has actually directly endangered a lot of his loved ones. And not until this movie do
isn't
we
that
ever
who
bear
you
the
relate
consequence
to?
of it.
Isn't that, did you take the
Oh yeah.
test?
Yeah, I took the test and I am Pippin, so I get
That's
it. Or
right.
I'm Mary. I don't know. I'm both of them, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, but no, I particularly like this movie because in the first one, it's almost played for laughs, but then like, so a great Minds of Moria when he touches the skeleton and it falls down the well, it alerts all the orcs and the goblins in the mines to their presence, and the cave troll too, and even the Balrog. Like it's Pippin's fault essentially that caused them to be discovered, right? And Gandalf chastises him in that moment, and you don't feel the gravity, and then like all the creatures come, and you're like, oh my gosh, like it nearly got Frodo killed, and it actually did result in Gandalf being separated from the group, and it caused Gandalf the Grey to perish, really, because he didn't come back the same. But because Gandalf comes back as Gandalf the White, he still doesn't have to bear that consequence. And it's not until obviously Boromir gives his life. Is it Boromir? I always get the two brothers confused. There's Boromir and Aramir.
Yes, Faramir.
So Faramir, thank you. Played by Sean Bean in the first movie. And again, he gave his life defending Pippin and Merry to save the two hobbits, who, mind you, weren't even the ones carrying the ring. But it's a very sweet moment where Sean Bean like saves those two as best he can to the point of 3 arrows. So again, and then the second movie, he had continued to make mistakes with the treants and all that stuff. But like in the third one, there's this where he's with Gandalf and they're talking to the king. I always forget the king's name. They call him the evil king with the tomatoes. What's his name?
Denethor.
Denethor, played by John Noble, who, like I said, best movie villain in a long time. Like absolutely evil.
Well, can I just add really
Flee for your lives. That was my other quote I was going to use. Run
right after
lives.
Gandalf hits him in the head.
Nah, just uses a staff and just knocks him on his back, dude.
Can I just add? I forgot to mention this was something I was thinking about, but I was totally like drew a blank after Ryan spoke because I was just loving everything he was saying. I loved how perfectly they juggled all those characters because it is really hard to give every single character enough screen time and so perfectly. And like you said, those two brothers, I mean, you felt it so much between him and his connection with his father.
Great flashback. You used the flashback, right? You get to see their relationship, which I think is good because you realize that both of them, but it's so fulfilling to know that they both have such an unloving, well, I should say the father definitively loves his older son, Boromir. So you see Faramir struggle. He almost feels like he has more to prove because Sean Bean was like his favorite son, and that added on to it, just adds to the terrifying story where he finally just says, "Yeah, I'm going to do what my father does. Go on a suicide mission." It's horrifying. And his character arc. This is the other thing too. So continuing from Pippin's decision, and he runs his mouth off again because mind you, he grabs the orb. He grabs the Sauron's eye or whatever from Saruman. Right?
That's right.
The orb. Yeah. He touches it and he alerts them and he goes, "Okay, we're now gonna have to separate." So again, constantly like just making these decisions, and he doesn't understand the gravity of it. And you're like, everyone's trying to protect you, dude, but like you're making it very hard for everyone. And all up to the very end of where he sees the king and he's like, Boromir died trying to save me and he gave his life for me. And therefore I give myself into your servitude. And Gandalf's like, he literally closes his eyes like, dude, like shut your mouth. Like you're now indentured servitude to the king. Is that what you want? Like you want to be in, and that's what's so horrifying when he finally he's sitting there and he's like, you sent your son on essentially what's a suicide quest, a fetch mission to go earn, get back the territory that was lost to these orcs and Urukai and all of my favorite, what was Gagu, Dead Goal, or Deagle, Gorbag? What was the evil orc with the messed up puffy face? He's like my favorites. Gorbag. So it could be Gorbag. There's so many good names. Or Shagrat. No, that Shagrat was one of the ones that the fighting over. I'm pretty sure there's a different one. Anyway, essentially a suicide mission, and then he's like reluctant to sing, and then he's basically made into the butt end of a joke where the king's like, sing for me, put on this outfit, you're like my jester now, like sing, dance for me. And it's so humiliating. And in this scene where he sings one of the most angelic voice of all time, like, because we hear beautiful scores throughout the movie, but it was actually the co-writer that heard him, Billy Boyd, singing at karaoke, and was like, so Philippa Boyan's one of the screenplay writers, she's like, oh, we're gonna have him sing this song, and they actually pulled the lyrics from the book, and they're like, you're going to sing this song, and it just ended up being one of the most beautiful cinematic scenes of all time. And him singing this really heartfelt song that he's like, we don't have songs for times of evil and whatever. And he's like, why should your song be unfit for my halls? Like, sing for Ramses. And then he makes him sing, and it's intercut with scenes of Faramir riding off. And dude, there's so many decisions in editing there that like it barely gives you enough information. Like, you see cuts of the horses riding, you hear the horses neighing or whatever, and all the soldiers kind of yelling. You hear like a distorted like scream in the background. It's just all them yelling and charging. And then you see the swords drawn, you see the arrows drawn, you see the orcs just like almost taking delight in like this murder and bloodshed. And then of course the king's complete indifference, stuffing his face, and he's just these awful sounds of him cracking bones and juicy tomato juice. Like, this scene is insane. I'm describing it so much, but like, and then Pepin is singing this heartfelt moment, and then he finally looks over at the king, thinking, maybe just hoping that like this song would cause him to change his mind, rescind his order, and call back the guards. And he is completely not affected in the least bit. He hasn't changed. He's just sitting there, same blank stare, overcome with grief from the news of Boromir, the disappointing news from his son.
But remember what Gandalf said as he was walking out of the building? He's like, he's using this as a cover, like his son's, because he really wants that power, but he's using the death of his son as a way to kind of hide underneath that.
What was the motive for that though? To keep the ring, or to keep what?
He wanted to keep the kingdom to himself. He was like,
Aragorn.
Oh, right. Yes. To give it up to Aragorn. He was upset about that. Yes. The true king of Theoden. Who
so he was using his grief as a way to be like, I can't be bothered with this.
Right. Yes. But and at the very end, you just see Pippin, like, he starts to weep, and it's like the saddest thing. And in that moment, he's finally like, he's all these consequences. He keeps putting his foot in his mouth, and it's finally caught up with him. And like, he finally started to care for Faramir, even, and he cares about Boromir. He cares about this family, and all of his dumb mistakes. And it's like finally catching up to him, and it's like a really like heartbreaking scene, because it's like truly just hitting like the gall of bitterness. And then it's like, redemption afterwards, where he can redeem himself, and just a poignant scene. And again, I'm going to even mention this, like the orcs all yelling fire. He yells fire, like with the arrows. That's silent, but the arrows firing wasn't. So you hear like the flint and the steel. It just like stings, because as soon as the arrows fly, then it cuts to again the king, and he's got like the craziest red tomatoes. I mean, red tomatoes, they don't look like that. They put like blood squibs in his mouth, and it's just leaking blood. And I'm like, what a great visual cue of like the shedding of blood, like without even showing it. And it's still more impactful, because then you think like, if you show him dying, it's so impactful. No, the arrows fly, it cuts, he's chewing on this tomato, and just blood, it's not blood, it's food, but it's dripping down his chin. It's just,
I thought the same thing. Blood's on his hands.
But it's on his lips, obviously, and chin. It's just it's such a masterful scene that I had to talk about it, because it's like my favorite thing. And I'm not one that really like, I'll listen to the movie soundtrack every once in a while. Like if I'm in the mood, I'm like, let's play some Lord of the Rings. We're on a hike in the morning, I play it almost as a joke. we're like, all right, let's get up that mountain, guys, a family, and then you play some Lord of the Rings, the march, the da, 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 da. But that scene, like, it brings me to tears even like just talking about it, thinking about Pippin's growth as a character, because obviously the Frodo and Sam aspect of it, and Mary's story, I love all of their stories, and Eowyn, and there's Viggo Mortensen and Legolas and Gimli, all the characters, Gandalf, like all of them are so good, but for some reason that one's the most emotional for me, is seeing Faramir, who by the way is like a character we barely got introduced in the last movie, and you kind of get to know his character, but the flashback here where you see his relationship to, why do you get to see Boromir back, which almost feels very like, that's already making me emotional, because that was the most heartbreaking scene of the first one, I think we can all agree. So to see that brought back, and he's like so kind to his brother, and he just has the worst father, and then like, he not only is the father grieving, but it's like, how do you think Boromir feels, bruh? Like, Dad, how are you so blind to the fact that like your son is hurting just as much, if not more, than you are? Because you obviously don't even appreciate him, dude, because now he's dead. You don't care about anything else. You shirk all responsibilities. You condemn people to death, and then you cowardly
honestly
tell everyone to disband. It's so crazy.
I feel like you could do an entire like podcast about just that father, because he is a fascinating character. He was one of my favorites, just as like a character study. I'm like, there's so much depth to these characters.
Just unbelievable, unmatched. It's so good. So anyway, John Noble, man, darn it, you're really good at being hateable. But we love you. You're so good. So, and then I would say just another scene that I could think of was when the Witch King and the Nazgul were like coming in and attacking them the first time they were fleeing the city. Gandalf runs out of the gate like all alone, Pippin was with him, and he's just riding out there, and he lifts his staff and just shines some freaking light on those Witch King, and then like the most angelic voice comes on. It's just like, using musical cues was so effective there. Like, I was like, I got goosebumps just thinking about it. And the shot of like the tracking shot behind Gandalf joining the rest of the herd to get into the, I was like,
yeah, I cried
again,
there too.
Peter Jackson's just sitting there like, how do we do this? How do we pull this off? It's so crazy.
It had to have been so planned, because they shot it all there in New Zealand, right? And so
it's not like you can't fix it in post. It's like, we have to get this right, and they did. I don't know how they did this. It's just so crazy, because I was thinking about these scenes, and I'm like, I would just like, even out of context, it's beautiful. And like Ryan said, you have hours of all these characters and all the decisions. Yes, I love what Ryan said about all the catalog that comes before it. It's not even necessary to understand the characters in this movie, because they do a good job at not only catching up to speed, but getting like, I remember I said this in the second one, like when you see Sam and Frodo at the beginning of Two Towers, you get a sense of their relationship. They tell you where they've been, you understand their dynamic with each other. We're a long way from the Shire, Mr. Frodo, Sam, they say each other's names. You already get everything, like everything you need. It gives you enough without like rehashing everything a second time. It's different. It's organic. Me and my wife were watching a movie, and it was so laughable. It was like, oh, you know what it was? It was the TV show Supernatural. No offense to that show and all the hard work that they did, but anyway, the first episode, it was like, yeah, and when mom, when she died, and it's like, I told her, I'm gonna look after you, little brother. Like, you're like, I mean, how many times have you had this conversation? Like, this is not natural. This is not how people talk after their mother goes missing. Like, I'm your brother. You're my little brother. I'm your older brother, and mom's gone. Like, it's like, thank you for laying that out, because it gives you character. It's called exposition dumps. Somehow in Lord of the Rings, these movies are so massive, and it's like, I don't think I can recall like any one scene being a exposition dump, and I'm sure there are, but like every scene, there's like a character dynamic going on. Like, I'm like, oh, like it's like emotional, like an emotional exposition dump. Like, how does that happen?
And it feels like they have history. Like every time Legolas and I forget the dwarf's name, Gimli. Every time they have an interaction, there's clearly history between them. Like when he goes into the Forbidden Forest or whatever it's called, that's Harry Potter, but that cave where all the skulls are, and
the Mirror of Erised, right?
Yeah. So when they go in there, I don't know.
That was a Harry Potter reference.
Oh, okay. Anyways, so when they go inside there, like Legolas goes first, and then Gimli's like, well, I can't let, I'll never hear the end of it that a dwarf didn't go in and an elf did. And it's just, it's so good. Just every character dynamic.
or even the drinking. They're all drinking, celebrating after.
Yes. Oh yeah.
the-
And then I love Legolas is drinking. He's like, I think I feel something.
Great.
I really like you do capture a little bit of Peter in the very beginning. How do you begin 3 movies in a trilogy? That's challenging. And you see the prologue, which is a must in one,
Oh, I
the
know.
the
That's huge.
explanation and depth behind bringing Gandalf back as a foreshadow in the second. And truthfully, the most important needle and thread through this entire thing is the unexpected character who ends up making the biggest difference in this story, which is Gollum. The story of
Yes.
Gollum, story of Schmeagol, and that introduction to that movie, I think it's a little scary. It's probably not what most people were expecting, but
Oh,
man, it's so good to get a
what a
context of
what a
who this person
crazy.
is and how he changed and
And I
how
love how
how
quickly
how
the
he's gonna
ring. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You
yeah
finish your thought.
no just how he is gonna influence the story. It's a foreshadow, this
100%. You see what
this
he's capable of,
character.
and how quickly he was corrupted, right? Like you think like it was almost more gradual, but what's so horrifying is like he's a peaceful hobbit. Like for the most part, hobbits are like very peaceful and friendly. I'm sure they could like, at times of war they could band together because in the book they actually fight against like some men. Because once they get back to the Shire, this is all not in the movie, but anyway, the hobbits fight, they fire arrows and stuff because they're taking back all these men that come in, and it's actually led by Sauron. Interesting. You guys didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that, but anyway, so or you read the book, so
Ryan's read
but
them,
what
yeah.
I find so interesting is like so the hobbit's mostly peaceful, and like he's with his best friend fishing, and he's like he sees the ring and he's like, it's my birthday, you're gonna give that to me. He's like, nah, I found it, I went in the water, dude. And he's just like, you're gonna have to die now. He just strangles him to death. His best friend, I mean, I'm assuming they're best friends, and he strangles him to death. And like how quickly the ring took hold of him, and like what an powerful, sad story and a sad tale of, because again in the first movie you have the amazing interaction between Frodo and Gandalf where they're talking about pity, that Bilbo didn't kill him when he had the chance. That's an amazing dialogue. And he said,
Well,
Yep.
it was pity that spared his life. And we don't know what his ultimate, tragically, Gollum succumbed to his, his desire for the ring, and
exactly
he
that.
tried to kill Frodo. But even Frodo succumbed to the ring because he's
Frodo
standing
was
there.
right
It's
behind
right
him,
there to throw him. Yes, he's
which
right
is
there to throw it in.
which leads to my next point of
Yeah.
the greatest character in this trilogy is Sam.
Sam for the win. Okay,
Yes.
real quick, Ryan, have
It's
you
so
seen?
symbolic.
There's a
Yeah.
video essay of how Samwise Gamgee is like the actual main character, or like the protagonist of the Lord of the Rings, and not Frodo. He's the there's like a story, I don't even know what it's called, but in like storytelling, you have like a person that's right next to the main character, and he's actually truly the protagonist, and you're fooled into thinking it's Frodo. But anyway,
Yep.
I've heard that story because it's a great character moment, because Sam is like, what am I doing so far from home? And he actually fights off the spider. He's saving Frodo's life and essentially carries Frodo up the mountain for it. He does the work for Frodo. And he says, throw the ring in, Frodo, we're here. And Frodo's like, yeah, not happening. And then he fights with Smeagol, and you're like, geez, they almost didn't accomplish their mission. Like, Frodo, you failed, buddy. I love you to death, but you failed. Now again, he carried the ring for longer. And in the movie, Sam never tries the ring on, and on the book he does at the end, fighting in the witch thing.
Well, and I just wanted to say really quick too that the
Yeah.
ring is a perfect representation, I feel like, of all that is evil, and I just feel like it can represent so many things.
Marriage. Oh wait, sorry.
No. But I'm just talking about this one specifically, and I just love that there's so many things, like you mentioned addiction, like it can relate to so many things in life, just everything that's wrong with humanity, just
corruption,
all
greed,
the worst
power.
things. Yeah.
And it's funny too, because you think about it, you're like, what is it promising them, right? It's always whispering, and it's always just like, and you're like, and they're like, and you're like,
I love.
very
and you
appealing.
have Sam saying,
see
don't listen
Bilbo,
to it.
my precious.
Yeah.
So good.
It's really good. And the
wow.
symbolism of Sam, I mean, we're all on our own journeys, and we all have like really close humans in our proximity who are in a way help lead us into where we should be going, right, or what we should be doing. And man, yeah, Sam certainly did that for Frodo, and it was beautifully portrayed in this story.
Amen.
Great.
Sam says, I would have been with you to the end.
Oh,
when they say that, and Mount Doom's exploding, and they're just sitting there
so
exhausted, and then the Eagles come, and the music just magically transports you into this dialogue. It's just unbelievable.
Yep. I love it. I can't carry the ring, Mr. Frodo, but I can carry you. Go on. It's like the best. Dude, you're having a bad week, or you need some motivational quote. Like, start there, dude. Everyone needs a Sam, dude, in life. I want to hire a Sam that pick me up every Monday morning and get me on my feet. Just absolutely love one crazy thing how the ring. It's what's so great, when I watched the first time, I remember being like so disheartened when Frodo decided not to throw the ring in, and then there's the struggle with Smeagol. I was like, it was stressing me out, and then they fall off the side of the edge. I'm like, he's dead. I was like, he has to be dead. And you see Frodo clinging onto the side, and then Smeagol fall. It's the craziest thing. Smeagol gets the ring. It's like a horrifying moment, because I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, he's won. And what I like about this analogy is like the moment he finally has the ring, he's so excited, and he just like pounds some lava, just eats it, and he like doesn't disintegrate. He's still alive, and then he looks down at the ring, and then he's almost horrified, and then he like tries to keep the ring up and out of the lava. I don't know why that like whole scene, and he like and then he finally disappears. The ring did nothing to save him, which I think is great, because he put all of his faith in the ring. It ultimately destroyed him. And then at the very end, the ring, it's like still this son of a bee still had the audacity to be alive. It's like sitting and floating on a little piece of ash or like skin from Smeagol or something. And it's just sitting there, and you're like, get in there, you son of, and then it's just like, no. finally falls in the lava, and I'm like, yes.
Well, what's hilarious too is Gollum's like cheering that he has it as he's falling to his death. He's like,
I got it. Like, what a great scene. Just like, again, all the way back from like the visual of Frodo invisible, and then like Smeagol's like bouncing around on like this invisible figure. It's like so great. Funny. Like, it's so great. And then horrifying, like Ryan said, like terrifying, the precursor to so animalistic, just like tearing off his finger, biting his finger out so he can get the ring. Horrifying. But again, just like the gravity of like the significance of the ring, its influence over people, big and small, that's just such a powerful thing, and it just rings so truth out. And again, that ring refusing to die. Yeah, the ring. Yeah, and the ring. What does it mean? What does it mean? But just refusing to die. It's sitting there, and it's just like, I'm not dead yet. Like, get in the lava. Get in there.
All right, last theme that I think is more so Tolkien, but in a way Peter really delivered it on the screen, right? It's beautiful that so many times in life you want things to be the way they were. You want to go back. You want in a way, a lot of movies, you look at all these Disney movies like, Moana and all these other ones where it's just like, oh yay, like we solved the problem and everything goes back to the way it was.
Yeah.
But here's a story where after everything is wrapped up with the ring and they're heading back home, you have the main character, Frodo, who cannot stay in Middle-earth, has to depart and leave behind the past and have a new, fresh future, which is so heart-wrenching when you're watching it. You're like, man, why can't you just stay? Just stay in the Shire. You saved it. But in a way, it's like a psychological sabotage, but also closure. Like, Frodo has to do this for himself to move forward with his life. That he cannot go back to the way things were. There's a lot of dialogue and beautiful writing in the writing of this part at the end that is so masterful. But I love that theme because it's not a predictable ending. Everyone's weeping at the end of this movie when we all saw it, because he's sailing away through the Grey Havens on the boat with the last boat leaving Middle Earth, and you're just like, I didn't see that coming at all. Like, not even close. You thought he was going to go back to the Shire and be right next door to Samwise, and they were just going to have families together.
Well, but what I loved that you mentioned too is when they come back, there's such a different feeling, like, because they're all sitting there, like we've been through all of this and all these experiences, and it has made us different. Like, even though they've gone home and home was exactly the same, like even that old guy, like, sees them like, oh, you rotten kids.
Yeah.
But it's just so cool that, like, even though the town is the same, like they came back as different people.
Yes, exactly. I love that. They're changed from their journey.
Yeah.
So good. And I
And I hate to
really
say
like that
might
theme.
even be that sounds bad, at least for the movie medium. I think that's actually good that the Shire didn't get touched by this, because
Yes.
then Frodo being like, I can't remain here anymore. There's because it's like nothing's changed. And again, like, because in the movie, the book, that does change. They fight, but then they return back to normal. But then he still, has to move on. But like, um, hero's journey is actually one of the parts of the hero's journey circle. I know that Dan Harmon talks about that a lot in storytelling and stuff. The hero's journey at the very end, it's like we're returning home, but it's not the same, because if your character has learned anything in your movie, like, it's true though, there are some characters that are static and they don't change, but like, I think more interesting ones are dynamic characters that learn something, which like every single one of our hobbits do. And that's why I think each of them are affected by it. Like Sam getting married, finally having the courage it's like, you fought off like this giant epic spider. Like he finally has the courage to ask the girl to marry him. It's the cutest thing. You're like, yes, he's finally brave. And Pippin and Merry are finally now responsible. Like, they come home and they understand the gravity of their decisions and their actions. And then even Frodo, like, it's almost a sad thing where it's like he and Sam like know what happened on Mount Doom. And I wonder if there was ever a conversation that anyone else had. I'd like to think Sam kept it a secret, obviously. And he's like, yeah, Smeagol attacked you and you definitely would have thrown it in, And I can only imagine that conversation, but Sam never would press Frodo to make him confess that. And he never would share that to anyone else. So I love that that's a moment between the two of them. But I just, yeah, it's so crazy to think like how in life, I like what you said, Brian, too. Sometimes it's like, I went on like this Disney cruise. This is so stupid, but like there were parents there that are holding on to the past. Let's put it that way. They're sitting on the cruise. They're singing they're singing the songs to their favorite Disney movies, and their kids are like bored out of their mind. They're like, this is not for me. This you say it's for me, but it's really for you. Like, there are parents there that they were there definitely for themselves. It was just weird to see that. And yeah, there are people that can't let go and or move on or change, and I think that's really interesting, like being willing to pass through and even say goodbye to things, even if it's the same and it's there for us, but we move on from them. We transcend, we become more, which is like the elf Valhalla thing, right? Or whatever, right? The boat takes them to like heaven. It's like elf heaven or something, right? Like that's their ultimate destination where they rest in peace or something. Anyway, I don't know much about the lore there, but
well, I think a
imagery
lot of
even.
this, I mean, there is so much said about this, but just a tiny little sliver that a lot of this trilogy was influenced by World War II. And that you fight for an ideal, you fight for a world that you knew, but you come back to the world once the war is over, and it's very different from what you saw, which is why I feel like you have, obviously, in the book, when the hobbits return to a very different Shire, right? And I feel like, in a way, Peter, I'm glad that he gave it a very warm coming home to what we fought for, because you get the sense, you get the sentiment of change from Frodo's decisions, right?
For sure.
Moving on. So, I mean, all I can say is this movie, we could talk about it for hours and hours, but it warrants a view. You have to watch it.
Folks, give this one a try. Even if you don't like fantasy, give it a try. It's a powerful
the best movie. Yeah, it's one of the best ever made.
No.
Amen.
And besides, ladies, if you think this is boring and for nerds, just take a look at Viggo. Just look at Viggo Mortensen. That beefcake will it'll make it seem like a breeze. You're gonna be watching this 4.5-hour movie, and you're just gonna wish there was more Viggo, man. Oh my gosh, the songs in this movie too. I could talk about so many things. Yeah. Guys, I love this. Thank you so much for talking, and thanks for getting us to watch this movie. Brian, we end every podcast by sharing. Oh, or I was going to ask, have you seen anything else lately? Because we definitely recommend this movie. But have you seen any other movies other than Lord of the Rings lately? And are you looking forward to seeing anything?
You know, nothing noteworthy. They don't hold a candle to this movie.
Yeah. I had the same problem coming on. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna have a lot of things to share elsewise. You know, it just doesn't seem right to talk about other movies. So anyway, we love you
Ty
coming on, Ryan.
I know what you're looking forward to though, Ty, this weekend.
Dude, is it John Wick?
Yeah, John Wick comes out this weekend.
Oh my gosh, I forgot. I am excited to see John Wick. And Ryan, I know you've seen one, right?
I've seen all three.
Oh, you've seen all three.
Oh,
there you go. So the John Wick.
The fourth one comes out.
No, it doesn't come out this Friday. You lied. It's next Friday.
Oh, really?
24th. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
See, that's why I was like I was like, it's St. Patrick's Day.
I thought you said it was this weekend, so because last week you said it's 2 weeks.
Yeah. I don't know what I was saying. I said a lot of things.
I don't know what you're saying either.
Folks, this has been Future Hidden Movie Gems. Leave us an email, futuremovies@gmail.com. Leave us a comment, like us, and check out our whole catalog on YouTube. This has been Future Hidden Movie Gems signing out. Peace.
Bye.
No man can destroy me. I am no man. Yeah. Women empowerment done right, by the way. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Wait, really quick. I didn't get to say what I've seen.
Oh, wait, you have things you've seen. Guys, this has been a little snidbit. We're gonna keep going. Ryan's gone, so we can the cats are away, the mice play. What else have you seen, dude?
No, I can't remember. Did I mention I saw The Mechanic?
The Mechanic, not The Machinist.
No, it's a Charles Bronson movie. And I watched the old classic with Charles Bronson, the remake with Jason Statham.
Was it any good? Wrath of Man.
It's not as good as Death Wish. Death Wish series is way better. I like that very much, but it is much harsher and brutal. But there's something about like an old man living in a time and society where like I just feel like I relate more to this guy who's like all these darn kids and like, you know, because they're running around harassing people and breaking and just doing horrible things. And then this old curmudgeon's like, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. It's just he's sick of all the, you know, the abuse and kids just
the vigilantism.
Yeah.
Like,
so I love it. Movies. He just comes in and just starts mowing down people. Like I've already mentioned my favorite quote ever, which is him saying, "Do you believe in Jesus?" And he's like, "Oh, yes, I do," because he's got a cross on his neck. And then he's like, "You're gonna meet him." Boom! And he's just so good.
You're about to meet him.
And then I'm watching Magnum Force and all the Clint Eastwood old Dirty Harry movies, which are so good too, Ty.
Yeah. I need to go through and figure out which ones I've seen because I watched like original. Bad Lieutenant, which I know is Harvey Keitel, whatever, and Martin Scorsese, but Bad Lieutenant, Dirty Harry, which is
it's Mean Streets, you mean? Because
wait, I'm sorry, yeah, Mean Streets, but I also saw Bad Lieutenant, which is Harvey Keitel, right?
I think so, but it's not Martin Scorsese.
And it's not Martin Scorsese. You're right, but Mean Streets in there. I watched and then Goodfellas, and then I watched
Goodfellas is so good,
and then I watched Do You Feel Lucky Punk, Clint Eastwood. They all kind of blend together. To be fair. Taxi Driver. I watched like all those movies within the span of one semester, and I remember thinking like all these tough guys wielding guns, and it's hard to separate them exactly.
Oh, I mean,
do remember which ones I liked more than the others, which is probably why Taxi Driver didn't do it for me because I'm like, Clint Eastwood
whoa. I love it.
Oh, by the way, real quick, I have to say this before I forget. I didn't know our previous guest, Jared Bauer, was in Lord of the Rings as Faramir. That was super fun to see.
He does look like him.
Right, he does. Every time I watch it, I'm like, dude, there's Jared Bauer. What's he doing on Lord of the Rings, dude? It's awesome. He got a little spot.
Well, it's funny because you talked about the Disney cruise, just being at Disney and stuff. Like,
yes,
Cameron and I were joking, like, that's amazing that, you know, Chris Pratt was able to jump on like the biggest franchises. I was thinking about this in this Lord of the Rings, that the one guy in Lord of the Rings, he was also in Star Trek. What's that one dude?
Carl Urban.
Carl Urban. That sounds right.
Yeah, he was Judge Dredd, and he was also in The Boys.
Yes. And it's just fun to see like these people that, and you know, the guy from The Matrix hitting Lord of the Rings as well. It's just amazing to see them like hit some of the best franchises ever. You're like, oh man,
like, this is going to be a good career move, I think.
Oh, and then I was also going to mention, I was watching I started The Last of Us, not as good as the video game. People are way overhyping this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. That's why I just decided to. I'm
so
sorry to let it go. I'm grateful to hear that it was well done, because maybe there's plenty of good video game stories out there that could really be really
It has a
interesting.
9 out of 10 tie on IMDb. I'm like, are just all kids rating this? Like, and have they not played the video game? Because the video game is like
A lot of them
perfect.
watching, like, oh, good. No, I don't have to play the video game because I suck at video games. Like, put in the work. I did the work.
Is a masterpiece, and don't get me wrong, like I love Mandalorian guy. I'm so bad with names. What's
Pedro Pascal?
Thank you, Pedro Pascal, and I love his daughter. But Ty, the Bella Ramsey, I mean, she's just she's hard to look at. I'm sorry, but she was in Game of Thrones
hard to
and
look at.
I'm sorry, but she's the main girl. She's playing the
it's
girl. It's
just funny to hear your gripe, because I've never had. Like,
I know I don't like to talk. I don't like to talk about, because I feel so shallow talking about that. But like, it is a visual medium. Like, we're supposed to
get pretty actors.
I have no problem saying that. I'm not saying that needs to be their only qualification. Like,
oh yeah, yeah, it does.
But even no. But when you first meet her too, like it just felt like such a Marvel thing for them to do. Is like, she said the F word and then she flipped off this character, and I'm like, okay, like, congratulations. Like, and I can just hear the audience laughing hysterically in my ear every time I go to a Marvel movie, you know, when they say that one swear word and everybody's like laughing hysterically. I'm like, all right, calm down. Like, I feel like that's not my kind of humor. Like, just I like how maybe an actor delivers a swear word, like in Quentin Tarantino's movies, when they deliver
that Samuel L. Jackson has ever said. Yeah.
Sweet baby biscuits, let me kill this nugget.
Please give me strength to kill this man.
That line delivery. Yeah, so I feel like there's cheap humor, which that felt like, and then there's
low-hanging fruit. Yep.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, how can we get people to laugh? Just have her say the F word. That's hilarious when she said it. And it's like,
foul-mouthed, crass little girl. I would argue that, yes, I've heard, I don't really care too much about, like, well, I will say, like, there's something about Bella Ramsey. I haven't seen her in anything else. What has she been?
She's in Game of Thrones. That's why you don't recognize her, because she plays, and the nice part of Game of Thrones. Yeah, but she has a very small part, which is perfect. Like, I'm sorry, but you're better as as a side character. So
Jordan wants like a hot young.
No, I have nothing.
Damsel in distress, and he's like, I just leave her up in the tower. That's what Jordan's saying.
No. Anyways, I had a hard time connecting with her. My wife even said she was the one who used the word eyesore. I didn't say that. She did.
Your wife's like, this ugly tramp. Why is Pedro even interested in saving her?
I feel so bad because, you know, I feel like so shallow, but I'm not. I gave my reasonings. Don't hate me. Anyways, so
and it's got a Melanie Linsky.
But I just realized
or I don't feel at home in this world anymore. I really like her.
Yeah, and I just realized watching that, like trying to get into it, I'm like, man, movies, new shows and stuff, they're just not for me. Like I just can't get 100% into. 100%
true, dude. I just went and saw. Oh, I did see a movie. I saw Cocaine Bear. Did you see that?
Oh no. Did you really?
I went and saw Cocaine Bear because it's called Cocaine Bear. Yeah. Do you want to hear some thoughts?
Yeah, I want to hear. Please.
Okay. Well, do you want me to spoil it or not?
Yeah, I'm not gonna see it.
Okay, we're gonna do spoilers. So everybody, if you don't want us, because it's just so recently out, it's still in theaters. The best thing I can say about the movie is the title, which is unfortunate because there is a span of like 12 minutes that I absolutely loved. There's a scene where the detective, it's from the what's that Seaside Story that I got you to try to watch, the singing?
Oh, I still haven't seen it. Yeah.
Blow the Man Down.
Oh, yes. That one.
So good. But the villainous woman at the Blow the Man Down, she's great as like a police park ranger or something like that. She carries a gun, and this bear. Okay, so I could give the whole summary very easily. There's a guy that kind of like American Made. Tom Cruise is delivering drugs out his plane. He just drops drugs at GPS location, and people go pick him up. So tons of cocaine. The guy is like dancing in his airplane. This is really funny because it's a great start to the movie. He's like, phew, he's like throwing the bags out the plane, and then he grabs he's like he's gonna dive out of the airplane and let the airplane crash into the ocean. And he like, or I don't know where he's gonna let it crash, but anyway, he's about to abandon ship. He steps out to the airplane and he smacks his head on top of the airplane, like so loud. It's like, bing! ding, and he like falls down and then falls out of the airplane. And then he ends up like like doesn't deploy a chute because he's like passed out. It just like smashes down on someone's driveway. And they're like, he had all this drugs on him. So people are like, okay, there's a drug runner that's like on my driveway. A guy comes out and finds this dead guy on his driveway, calls the cops, and then the cops are like investigating, like there was a bunch of drugs dropped here. So Ice Cube Jr., who, Ice Cube's son, I know him from Ingrid Goes West and Straight Outta Compton. I'm gonna learn his name eventually, but I always call him Ice Cube Jr. Or maybe Crushed Ice would be a better name, right? Crushed Ice. Hey, I like that. I'll call him Crushed Ice. So Crushed Ice is like, yo,
he's in it. I actually want to see it now. I really like him.
Oh, he's great. And then they had the actor that played Solo from Han Solo movie or whatever, which I think he's fine. Like, he's all right. He's actually pretty funny in this movie.
He was great in the Coen Brothers film. So
yes. And in the end, like, just ultimately, I did get a little underwhelmed, only because like with a name like Cocaine Bear, I was like, let's go, let's have some like drug scene. Like even the Puss in Boots had an espresso drinking scene where the cat's eyes and then the like runs out the window. Even just like a simple, no one was affected by the drugs in this movie except the bear, which I found weird because there's children that do drugs in this movie, there's adults that do drugs in this movie, and no one behaves any differently after like I was waiting for the jokes, like the kid to be like, "Dude, there's a bear," and everyone doesn't believe him because he's on crack, like he looks cracked out, and they'd be like, "Oh," and then they eat. There's never that scene, and again, you could argue that it's subverting my expectations. There were some weird choices made, and unfortunately, it was directed by. And I think that's where most of the problems come from. No, but ultimately, I will say like the movie has some weird. I would put it on par with M3gan, Megan. It's just a fine B movie. There's a great sequence from the moment that they're in the house, the sheriff's park ranger hut or whatever, where you can get like information about your hike and everything at the park. That's the great scene, all the way up to the bear chasing down the ambulance. It is crazy. The bear's like, I don't know what's going on. The bear's like on the roof all of a sudden, and then it does like the ending scene of Nightmare on Elm Street where it comes through the tiny little window in the door and it grabs the guy's face. It's like so dumb, and you're like, whatever. But then they cut, and like there are times where the deaths are really, really interesting. Like, it does like I call it the Blink 182 first date music video where the girl falls off her bike when she gets this girl is sitting in the back of the ambulance, and then her stretcher falls out of the back of the ambulance because the bear comes in, and she like lands on her face and is like smeared across the street. It's so gross. But I was like, dang, like that was creative. And then like the bear like attacking them in the ambulance, the moving car, I thought was great.
You know, the intro actually reminded me of this is a terrible movie, but the one good scene is Scout's Guide to a Zombie Apocalypse. It's just that opening scene where he's dancing, the guy from Workaholics.
Yes, like that's better than
it's like a perfect. Movie. I know, it's like a perfect intro. It just reminded me of that, thinking about the guy dancing.
I would argue, like, just look up like Cocaine Bear ambulance if you can find that scene, like, and even just a few minutes before it, where again, I'll just spoil it. So the park ranger sees the bears like open that door and I'll blast it, and then she opens the door, the bear is there. I thought it was going to shoot someone innocent, but the bear is there, and then she fires and shoots the kid that opened the door because he's standing on the inside of the cabin. And
you're making it sound like I want to see it now.
I know, like there's definitely moments where I was like, oh, like I was like, dang, like that was great.
Yeah,
but like overall, again, it's an hour and 30 minutes movie, but I almost even felt like they could have still shortened it to 10 minutes or even put like a more interesting scene in it, because there's some weird deaths where I was like, I'm not even sure how I was supposed to feel. They had the gay couple, or the gay guy from Modern Family, the Mitchell, the redheaded.
Oh,
and he's the love interest for the lady, the park ranger, which I thought was funny. I was like, yeah, it's a gay guy, you know, he's trying to get the affection of this woman, or the woman's trying to get his affection. And I guess he was coming onto her dances, but I also thought like they had like no chemistry, but I was fine with it because they were two weird people. Like he's like a park lover, and he's like, oh, we're gonna go on the trails, and the bear ends up eating him, and it's like sad. Like it's just pathetic. He gets cocaine all over him, and the bear smells him and climbs up the tree like super duper fast. It climbs up the tree and like eats him, but he like ends up like getting eaten like partially on the tree, so he's hanging upside down. It's just, it wasn't scary and it wasn't funny enough. So it's like either make it scarier and make it funnier. And it was literally M3gan. That's the same problem. It's like everyone's holding their punches to appeal to the general audience. But I was like, you have an R rating, like go for it. Like,
well, it sounded like, but it sounded like M3gan originally was going to be R, and then
sure. But even then, like I feel dumb being like, well, it has to be art. It has to be pushing the envelope. But it's like just take a risk. Like there was no risk taking, other than the fact that it's called Cocaine Bear. You could argue like, But even then, it's like you do realize that that's like a very good marketing like it's on par with like Sharknado, right? It's like such an absurd title. You're like, dude, let's go see Cocaine Bear. Like it's a bear that does cocaine and it just starts wreaking havoc on a bunch of people in the park. That's like a great premise for a movie.
Yeah.
And yes, they did some character elements, which some of it worked, some of it didn't. Anyway, it had child actors. It had Ray Liotta. This is like Ray Liotta's last movie. He passed away earlier last year. It was sad to hear that.
Any movie with the title cocaine in it, you're like, oh, we're gonna see this.
Yeah, how many movies have cocaine in the title, dude? Let me look this up on IMDb. How many movies have cocaine in the title? There's Cocaine Bear. There's a movie called Cocaine that came out in 1921, and that's it. There's a movie called Cocaine. It's a drama.
Well, it's kind of like it feels like this might be the new thing where, you know, before it was like add Nazis in the movie just to heighten the stakes on everything.
Yeah. No, that is interesting. Yeah, now it's like added drugs. It was really funny though. I will give it to Pitch Meeting. He had a really funny one where he was talking about this movie, and he's like, "Oh, and then how will they get away? Oh, it'll be super easy. Barely an inconvenience." He's like, barely. I don't know why it was so funny, but it's like the pun added because he always says that joke. Pitch Meeting was really funny too, where he's like, so anyway, I'm gonna pitch this movie. What do you think? He goes, yeah, let's do it. He's like, wait, what? Like the whole movie pitch was a joke, right? And he's like, I didn't think you'd actually go for this movie. It's really funny. So watch the Pitch Meeting, and it'll tell you all the funniest parts of the movie too. Cocaine Bear, take it or leave it, I guess. It was just fine, and it's fun with friends, I'm sure, and yeah, we're just not the target demographic anymore, Jordan. So it's a sad world we live in.
Not at all. I mean, I've just been watching a lot of old films, and I've been listening to directors talk about like movies you should watch. And so I've just been going back, and I love these old movies, and a lot of them are Westerns, like, or that Westerny feel.
Yeah,
so
modern day Westerns. Love it. So yeah, I don't think any other movies. That was pretty much it. Cocaine Bear was the highlight.
And I
because I went to the theater to watch it. So.
And I finished S. Craig Zoller's book.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Not. Please make your books audio. I know he's not listening to this, so
please. Oh, well. I'm gonna say this once. Listen up, Craig. I know you're listening. Dude, has he announced anything? Because I know didn't Tarantino announce?
He says he's working on. Yeah, so Tarantino announced that he's working. He has
28 months later was announced, or
so
like, they officially attached Cillian Murphy.
It says it's in production. Does that mean it's actually happening? I don't know.
I don't know. Is it in production hell still? That's always the thing.
Yeah. So
in production hell.
Oh well,
anyway,
and
but
sometimes
Cillian Murphy is attached to it, which makes me happy because I'm like, dude, are we gonna go through a Cillian Murphy?
But why is it called 28 months later? It should be called 28 years because it's been 22 years now. So close enough.
22 years since the 28 weeks?
days.
Oh, but days. Which you're right, because it is going back to Cillian Murphy's story. Well, I assume because he's the actor in it. So, dude, if they, oh man, I want to see it so bad.
It just is, as long as Danny Boyle's attached to it, I'm so excited. I mean, and
Cillian Murphy.
I know Cillian Murphy too, but I'm just saying, like,
is it Cillian or Killane?
It's Cillian. Killane, maybe. I don't know.
Cillian Murphy. You're killing it, Murphy. I think that's what it's. His name is You're Killing It, Murphy. I think is what it is.
But yeah, Zoller has 4 projects in the works. I'm very excited about. And then he just finished a graphic novel, which I love.
4 works, but none of these are movies, right?
I don't know. He just said he has 10 projects. I don't know what that means. It could just be.
And then like next year, it's like, here's this movie starring Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson and every conservative actor in Hollywood.
I hope they finally let him take his film off the ground, but nobody's willing to buy it because they look at his other 3 films and they're like, oh, this kid wants to make a kid's movie. Because he was going to make a movie.
Like, come back to us when you play ball and make a Disney film.
No, because he refuses to do that. But
I know, but I'm saying they're like, you need to play ball. You have one for me, one for you. It's like, yeah, you're a competent director, but your movies aren't box office, cash cows. And it's like, yeah, but those movies are stupid. So
exactly, they will stand the test of time. Not
they will age well, unlike Lord of the Rings, which didn't age at all. When I said Lord of the Rings, excuse me, Rings of Power. How dare I put them on the mistake, those two. Folks, this has been so fun. Thanks for talking. Go see Cocaine Bear, or don't. Definitely see Lord of the Rings, and all 3 of them. And everybody, this has been Futuro Hidden Movie Gems, signing out.
Peace.
Goodbye.